The January 15, 2019 meeting of the Human Services Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mrs. Conley. Here. Mrs. Draw is excused. Ms. Harris is excused. Mr. Lightfoot.
Here.
Mr. Michike.
Here.
Mr. Moyo.
Here.
Ms. Taylor.
Here.
Mr. Wilt.
Here.
Chairman Zale.
Here.
President Carbone.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, is there anyone signed up for, Mr. Clerk, is there anyone signed up for the public forum?
Yes, we have 4 speakers signed up. When I call your name, please come forward to the podium. You'll have 2 minutes in which to address the committee, and please conclude your remarks when the buzzer sounds. Our first 2 speakers will be Pia Stamp and Cynthia Tolman.
So Pia Stampe from Step by Step. I am talking to you again about early intervention and the waiting list, the growing waiting list. Somebody else will talk in more detail about what the waiting list looks like right now. But I'm going to tell you about 2 phone calls that I got yesterday in my office. And those were from parents begging for services. The first call was about a child that's on the west side of Monroe County. The child is waiting for early intervention for help with feeding. She qualified and approved to receive early intervention services. The child is now 7 months old. She was born apparently healthy. At 4 months, she began having severe seizures that could not be controlled with epilepsy drugs. She was diagnosed with infantile spasms. Infantile spasms often cause behavior, learning, and motor problem that may never resolve. This particular child lost all her motor skills and her feeding skills when she started having seizures. She had a swallow study that showed that she was aspirating food into her lungs because she could not control her mouth and her swallowing. A feeding tube was surgically inserted into her intestines. This child immediately began receiving physical therapy from early intervention, but there were no services available for feeding therapy, and she's on the waiting list while her parents struggle to feed her. As this family navigates their little baby's horrible and permanent diagnosis, she is sitting on the waiting list along with 133 other children. No matter how long the baby is on the waiting list, it's lost time and detrimental to her future ability to ever learn to eat by mouth. The longer she waits, the more time and ultimately taxpayer money it's going to cost to help her and her family. The second call concerned a set of twins who are also on the waiting list. They were born prematurely at 23 weeks. They automatically qualify for early intervention due to their diagnosis of extreme prematurity. Their initial evaluation found them eligible for feeding therapy due to severe feeding difficulties, and that happened on September 12, 2018. They have now been on the waiting list and have lost 4 months. When parents are taught how to feed their medically frail children correctly, it is highly likely, are not taught how to feed their children, it's highly likely that they'll need years of services. It is probably the most stressful situation imaginable for a parent to be unable to feed their children. The trauma of the premature birth is now exacerbated by having to wait for help. Can you imagine not being able to feed your baby? These are just 2 stories of the 133 children that are currently on the early intervention waiting list, waiting for services that they are by law entitled to receive. We need your help. Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Cynthia Tolman. I'm a pediatric speech-language pathologist, and I'm also the director of a local business, Clinical Associates of the Finger Lakes, that provides evaluation and therapy support services to children in both EI and preschool. We used to provide ongoing service coordination in early intervention as well. But last March, we made the incredibly painful decision to close our ongoing service coordination department. It just became fiscally unsound to wait longer for the promised rate changes from the state. We just couldn't do it any longer, so we closed that department, as many agencies have before us and many agencies have after us. Inaction on the part of the state seems to be the norm, and blaming the state and thinking things won't ever change have also become the norm. Please do not let this become your norm. Inaction and inability to do the right thing cannot be acceptable in this county or in this state. We need your help at the state level and are ready to partner with you to make lasting, positive changes for the betterment of the children and the families in our community. We are not interested in inaction being the norm. We heard last night that a letter has been sent to the state, and we are very appreciative of that effort. But it's not just help at the state level we need. We need your help at the county level too. I'm here to ask that money be reappropriated from one part of the budget to another in order to increase rates for preschool speech, occupational, and physical therapy. If no action is taken by you, the children and families in Monroe will be negatively impacted due to the continued and growing waiting lists, a lack of providers, local small businesses continuing to shrink and perhaps even closing, experienced and talented professionals leaving our community and not working with the children who need them the most. And the taxpayers of Monroe County, sadly, will face paying more money in the long run for services at the school age level. Thank you for your time and for your help.
Thank you.
Our next two speakers are Janet Rosenberg and Joanne LaMonica.
Good evening. My name is Joanne LaMonica, and I'm a teacher for deaf and hard of hearing babies in the Monroe County Early Intervention Program. I've spoken to you on several occasions, and here I am again. You've heard the countless stories over the last several months from so many incredible professionals and brave parents pouring their hearts out to you, hoping to make their impassioned points clear and begging you to do what you were elected to do, to support the citizens of this county with its most critical issues. By now you've heard all the reasons why early intervention is in such crisis. There is a misconception that the crisis has been somehow averted with the county executive statement in December. But just so you know, in September, 24 children were on the waiting list for services. Almost half were children with hearing loss, awaiting support. In October, there were 35 children. In November, 46, in December, 94, and in January, 133. If you're surprised by those numbers, you should be. But the county executive eliminated the wait list. Wrong. The county executive sent 6 people over to the county early intervention offices to help with clerical work. They are helping with clerical work, faxing, copying, paperwork. Non-billable clerical tasks. That's it. These people cannot talk to grieving or scared families. They cannot advise families on the early intervention process, what happens next, and how to assemble a team that will best meet the needs of a child. This is semantics at its best. These clerical assistants help process paperwork to keep the EI County Service Coordinators just to stop them from not taking on new children in the program. That's it. New referrals are being taken and processed, but make no mistake, there are not enough providers to service these children in need, and there are not enough service coordinators to handle these cases. It's only going to get worse. I also looked into your website, and I saw on the county legislator website that in the mid-60s, the Supreme Court handed down a decision establishing the one-man, one-vote principle. Based on this historic action, the 29-member county legislature became the chief lawmaking body. All of this is direct from your website. The men and women who represent you in the legislature are responsible for developing the laws and policies that affect the lives of 710,000 residents, including over 230,000 in the city of Rochester. Each legislator represents a district of approximately 25,000 people. It goes on to talk about how each of you works in the private sector, that you are citizen representatives, that each of you brings a unique perspective and special expertise. The growth and success of our county lies in the hands of your elected representatives. That's from your website.
Ma'am, thank you. Please kindly
Last
conclude.
paragraph, please. According to this statement, you are individuals. One man, one woman, one vote. This tells me that you should be able to think and act as individuals. I'm not a politician, nor would I ever want to be. I've been a registered Republican, I've been a registered Democrat, I've been a registered independent. This is not a partisan issue. I challenge you to fight for these issues as an individual, please. Fight for it because the professionals in your county who devote their lives to helping these children in need without ever having a pay increase for 25 years matter. Children aren't partisan. Fight for it because it could be your child, your niece, your nephew, your grandchild that's in need of early intervention services someday, and there may not be anyone there to help. This program is imploding in this county and in this state. You passed your budget without helping our program. Please don't let the governor pass his without making this right.
Good evening. I'm Janet Rosenberg. I'm a physical therapist. I work at Step by Step. I'm here to be sure you understand there is still a wait list in early intervention, and this wait list is for ongoing therapy services. Early intervention continues to be in crisis, and this issue is not going to go away if change does not occur. To clarify, in November and December of this past year, many of us came to you to speak about the EI crisis. The county announced they were putting all new referrals coming into early intervention on a wait list due to the closure of 2 more agencies providing ongoing service coordination due to poor reimbursement rates. This closure meant more than 1,000 children would become the responsibility of the county service coordinators. EI agencies and independent EI providers spoke out because without referrals for evals and ultimately without new children needing services, we would not have the revenue to keep agencies running and pay our staff. Fortunately, this particular wait list to process new referrals has been lifted. However, we still have a growing wait list for ongoing services. These are children who have been found eligible for EI services based upon evaluation. They are on a wait list because there is a shortage of all therapists, speech therapists, teacher of the deaf, teacher of the visually impaired, OT, PT, and special educators. Last week at the Legislature meeting, I reported in December 2018 there were 94 children waiting for some type of EI therapy service in Monroe County. This month, the wait list has 133 children. That is a 43% increase in 1 month's time. Wait lists are not new. They've been around for at least 4 years. The number of children waiting, however, continues to grow each year, typically peaking by the month of June. As the handouts you will receive tonight will show, the wait lists for ongoing services are growing. In December of 2017, there were 5 children on the wait list. This past December, 94. That's an 18,000% increase. 1,800, I'm sorry. In January 2018, there were 13 on the wait list compared to 133 this month, a 923% increase. These are children currently not getting the therapy they are eligible to receive. We know from the past years, from January until June, the number will continue to rise. The jump in numbers is already proving to be significant. From January 2018 until June 2018, the number of children waiting increased monthly, peaking at 143. We are at 133 right now. Although the wait list decreased over the summer, it never went away. There were 32 children still waiting for therapy going into September of this past year. Remember, the longer a child waits for intervention, the greater the gap, the greater the need, the greater the cost to the taxpayer. Why is there a wait? It goes back to reimbursement rates in New York State. The rates are less now than they were 20 years ago. Teachers and therapists leave EI for more competitive salaries and benefits, and it is becoming more and more challenging, I'm almost done, to attract providers into this field. We need you to help us to fight for the children.
It's 2 minutes.
We are the ones working in the trenches. We need to be a part of the solution. We need you to understand the problem and the process. Please reach out to us. We want to help. Thank you.
Is there anyone signed up or anyone else signed up I'm sorry, anyone else that is not signed up that would like to speak in the public forum? Seeing none. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. You have the December 18th, 2018 minutes before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. Next item on the agenda is new business. Mr. Clerk.
Referral 19-0017.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislator Conley. Is there any discussion on this item? Actually, before we have any discussion on this item, I'm wondering if representative from our administrative team can just talk a little bit about the Safe Harbor Initiative for 2019.
Good evening, and through the chair, I'd be glad to bring you up to date. This honorable body decides to accept this $43,000 from New York State OCFS. This will be our 7th year of helping youth who are being trafficked as sexual crime victims. We've already seen our numbers go over 1,000 since we began it in 2013. I believe we are up to 1,081 of youth that have been red flagged as possible sex trafficked youth, and that is through our work with the Center for Youth, our partner since the beginning of Safe Harbor in 2013. We are very happy also that Center for Youth has said that they would bring around $60,000 to the table this year for the 2019 portion. In 2018, the Office for Mental Health said that they would pony up $75,000 to make sure that we stayed whole, because we had usually received around $100,000 since the beginning of the program. They wanted to make sure that we remained whole because of the work that we did. And Center for Youth said, well, that was awesome that Monroe County did that, and we'd like to be the ones that bring about the rest of the dollars this year. So we're very happy that we can continue this great work. The numbers don't go down. It pretty much stayed constant. Now we hit a peak in 2017 with 277 youth that were red flagged as possible sex trafficked youth that were intervened for. 2018, the count right now is 234. We might get a more stable number as the numbers have been counted and dealt with through our law enforcement partners. But as of right now, we would say that we've helped around 1,080 sex trafficked youth, or youth that have been flagged as sex trafficked youth.
Thank you very much for that update. Is there any discussion on this item? Legislator Lightfoot.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, we say that the numbers are pretty much the same over the last few years. I'm grateful that others are ponying up to add to the budget. But, Mr. President, through Mr. Chairman, to the administration, are we doing anything in regards to prevention in this trafficking case? I mean, we're flagging them and we're identifying them. But are there any efforts that's coming from your office that are working towards prevention?
Through the chair, part of the Safe Harbor program that the legislator has been voting on for the last 7 or 6 years, this would be the 7th year, part of this is advocacy. And that is exactly what these folks do. They go into schools, churches, public forums, and they tell them what's going on in their backyards, and you see the education that is being done. That's how we have found over 1,000 youth, is because we go out and advocate and let people know that this atrocity is going on throughout our county. And Monroe County is no different than any other county. We just do a great job of trying to find our youth. And again, I can't credit enough the good people at Center for Youth. The reason we chose them to contract is because they were our runaway homeless youth service providers. And in 2012, when we went into the grant, we needed folks that were on the ground that knew where our youth were. And at that time, runaway homeless youth, we said that's the most vulnerable population. That's who these predators go after. That is the prey. And through our advocacy work with Center for Youth, our education, going out into the community, letting folks know that that's what's there, we've been able to find these youth because we say, hey, these are the red flags that we want you to look for, all the things that can possibly lead towards a youth that's being trafficked for sex. So I am very proud to say that we are out there in the community doing as much as we can. To the chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this item? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item, please.
Referral 19-0027.
Moved by legislator Conley, seconded by President Carbone. Is there any discussion on this item? Yes, legislator.
I'm on the Board of Health as the legislative liaison, and could you tell me, we're going to fill this position. Is there still another one open through the chair?
Through the chair, I don't have an active roster for the Board of Health in front of me right now, so I don't know offhand if there are vacancies, but I can find out.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Are there any other matters to come before this committee? There being no other matters, the January 15, 2019 meeting of the Human Services Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Human Services Committee will be Tuesday, February 26, 2019 at 5:30 p.m.